Barely 2 months into the new year, and new crime statistics are pointing to an increase in the number of people murdered when compared with the same period last year. According to data from the Jamaica Constabulary Force, JCF, between January 1 and February 3, 156 persons were killed. That's 24 more murders when compared with the corresponding period in 2017. In the first 3 days of 2018, there were 15 homicides. The data also show that since a state of emergency, St. James recorded 21 shootings and 12 murders. The St. Catherine North Division has so far recorded the most murders since the start of the year, 22. Clarendon 18 and St. Andrews South 15.
Meanwhile, a British criminologist is insisting that the government use a different approach to tackle crime in the country. He argues that over the years, the authorities have used a method which sought to put plaster on deep wounds rather than addressing the root of the problem. He also called for the private sector to assist in building a better Jamaica. TVJ's Anthony Lugg reports.
Over 100 murders in the space of, 3-4 weeks? That means healing needs to take place before any intervention.
British criminologist Craig Pinkney speaking on building personal and community competencies for peace at the Ministry of Justice's head office on Tuesday. Mr. Pinkney, who has conducted research on crime worldwide, says while there is no quick fix to Jamaica's crime problem, the government must start looking at the grassroots of the crime situation.
So, for anyone tuning in now, I know it's a Thursday night. It's usually a Monday evening where we have the show on Genesis Radio. But we have to get the information fresh while it's fresh in his brain. We had him in beforehand in October, just gone. So I have criminologist, urban youth specialist and lecturer and director of Real Action UK, and this is only just a few accolades. Mr. Craig Pinkney, how you doing?
Hello.
How are you?
Tired.
Jet lag.
I'm slightly happy to be home, more so for family and my kids and stuff like that. So other than that though, I want to be right back on the Jamaican island, but other than that though, I'm good.
You feeling good?
I'm feeling good.
That's good. You probably need like a few more hours sleep just to get back to.
Most of the day, so.
But you're here now.
I'm here.
You're here.
Ready to
roll.
roll.
Go right into the mic for me, right?
Ready to roll.
Yeah. That's good. There's a lot. And you know, I was following you on your Facebook lives and the videos you've got going on, like you in Jamaica. Okay. Before I go off on a tangent, I think it's probably best to explain what's happening at the moment and why Craig was actually called out to Jamaica. So I know there is a state of emergency with the crime and violence in Jamaica. I know it's in certain parts of the country. And from the 1st to the 3rd of January, 156 people have been killed. Hence why the Ministry of Justice called you out there to basically help out with the situation. So why did they call you actually?
Good question. When I first got the email, I didn't know. I thought it was a joke, honestly. I got the email originally through LinkedIn.
Okay.
And someone had said that, we're interested in you coming to Jamaica. Originally, what they emailed me for was being a part of their 9th annual conference of what's called Restorative Justice Week. Over the last couple of years, someone came with the concept of using restorative justice in Jamaica. And every year they look for motivational speakers that can kind of talk about restorative justice. So that was the original email.
Yeah.
So from that email and January the 4th, Jamaica was declared a state of emergency by the Prime Minister. So I then got a follow-up email, not to kind of change the purpose of why I was going, but now there needs to be a response to some of the key issues. So it only was real until I got the letter from the Jamaican government to say that they wanted me out there to help support them with some of the issues around gangs and youth violence. So you can imagine I was excited. They found little Craig in little Birmingham. But I was honoured, and I think it was more so an honour that I'm going back home. You know, even though I wasn't born there, I'm born here. All my family roots are from there. So once I finalised that I'm definitely going, it was more about when and what date and what do they want me to do. I think it was more just about, for them, getting someone to come in to kind of contextualise what they think is going on.
Okay.
and also to try and come forward with some solutions, or at least to try and deal with the problems firsthand. So my mission for the 2 weeks prior to me flying out was really trying to understand the violence and understand what was going on. And I'm sure many of us online have seen the videos, we've seen the reports, and even videos of people lying in the street. And, you know, that for me gave me a better understanding of exactly what was going on. But I've always understood Jamaica as an island, not just Jamaica, but other similar islands and other countries, how extreme poverty impacts people, how lack of corporate investment impacts poorer people. You know, you have people from other countries or other races that go into the country and exploit situations where they enable their own people to profit. For example, they might be building roads over there, but the Jamaican people not essentially are profiting. So when we're talking about extreme poverty, you have people that are, you know, prepared to do certain things. So, you know, they've got a major issue over there with scamming. You know, major issue
about that.
Of individuals setting up their spouses, you know, to get executed, to get insurance money. So there's just loads of different issues, and then I'm sure you've heard about the issues around embalming fluid, you know, and stuff like that. For me, from a criminological perspective, these are just symptoms of deeper problems. So my role was going there to expose to them what those deep-rooted problems are. And if the government want to see change, if the community want to see change, they need to be able to respond to those issues. So 5 days prior to that, I met with all my mentors. You know, we're talking Dr.
Before
Martin
you left?
Glynn before I left.
Okay.
Dr. Mohammed Rahman, you know, Joan Campbell, you know, Sharon Warmington, Dr. Carlton Howson, Raymond Douglas, and the list continues.
Just to name a few.
Just to certify that when I'm going over there, you know, I know what I'm doing. And I think it's important that I mention that, is because sometimes people see the work that we do and think it's just me. And I'm saying, it's me in the physical, but I have great minds that I stand on the shoulders of. So when I went there, I was confident in terms of my ability. So when I got there, I have to talk about the experience when I first got to the Jamaican airport. So I stepped off the plane. There was a lady waiting with my name.
Oh, like in them films.
And I literally was moving like a diplomat out there. You know, I didn't wait in no lines. They just said, "There's your bag. Come get your bag." There was a taxi waiting for me. A lady was waiting for me outside the airport on my way to the hotel. Literally, I was in there 10 minutes. I've never been in an airport quicker than that. And once I got to the hotel, I didn't even have time to wash my skin, cream my face. It was
work.
We've got a meeting. And that was like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. I was hungry. I was thirsty. It was just like, this is what my itinerary was. So my itinerary, what they originally planned for me, had changed. So they wanted me to be on live TV the morning.
Straight away?
In the morning. So they said, you need to get a couple of hours sleep. Then you're going to be on live TV at 6:30 in the morning. And then at 9 o'clock, you're going to do a public lecture at the headquarters of Ministry of Justice, where they're inviting people from loads of different communities. So you got married, bearing in mind that our difference is wild, so I didn't really get much sleep. So they said to me, can you develop a presentation that looks at gang violence in community? So everything I had prepared, it wasn't relevant. It was relevant, but wasn't relevant. So in the morning, went on Smile Jamaica, which is kind of like their main TV program.
Before you left, did you have any idea that you'd be on the news like that?
No. I just thought it was meetings with government officials, meeting a few community leaders, stakeholders from the community, and that really was going to be my role of being there. So when I went on live TV, then I done the public lecture, and we had people from Tivoli Garden there, people from August Town there, people from Denham Town there, in different parts of Kingston, and people that travelled from different parts of the countryside to hear what I had to say. It was an interesting experience. So even after I'd done my talk, there was people that wanted to talk to me from the community of what their issues were and what they felt. It was controversial, but you know me, I like to hear what the controversy is. I'm not about kind of watering down what the reality is. So what were they saying? They were saying things like, you know, they were talking about the extreme poverty. They were even talking about the dons of certain parishes. These are like your individuals that
run the towns.
That run certain type of towns, and how police have moved those individuals. So they were going back to even I'm sure you know in 2010 of the extradition of Christopher Koch Dodos, and they were talking about the concept that since certain dons have been removed or extradited to America, it's caused somewhat a power vacuum.
Okay.
So now
nobody does a power vacuum.
Power vacuum is essentially where the power's disappeared and everybody now is fighting for the power.
Okay.
So now your leader's now gone. You want to be a leader. I want to be a leader. But then what happens if we're both fighting with each other? So that's happening. So they're saying that a lot of the spates of violence in those particular areas are to do with certain individuals being removed.
And is that what the community were telling you?
This is what the community was saying. So they were saying we need to bring them back, which of course is controversial because from a government perspective, and we know that there's issues around politicians and gangsters and stuff that's going on. You know, the people were saying that they felt that there was a lot of calm in the community.
Wow.
People wasn't able to rape. People wasn't able to molest people.
And I understand
in
that in a way. It makes sense because you hear of those people that run the towns and the whole what's
Robin
it called?
Hood concept.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah.
But then I think from a criminological perspective, I have to look at things from both sides.
Yeah.
And then you look at if you're talking about, you know, the crimes that they've committed in terms of, you know, the selling
how
of narcotics.
they managed to get there.
And you're talking about selling of guns and stuff, you know, how many other people have they destroyed in order to support their community. And I'm not here to be the judge of what's right or wrong, but just to get you to realise that that's the reason why a lot of these people are wanted, because they're criminals to an extent. So that was coming out of the community, and they kind of felt that, you know, certain police strategies they didn't feel was correct. They felt that the politicians have a very much close insight into what's going on, but they're turning a blind eye because a lot of them are involved in being involved in criminal entities. So it was a real good vibe. So from the Tuesday, by the time I got back to my hotel at 6 or 7 o'clock, it's like the whole island knew who I was. Literally, when I stepped into my hotel, it was like the workers were like, "Oh, you're Craig Pinkney, the British criminologist." And it was weird because, you know, we do stuff over here and that, and people acknowledge you for what you do. But it was almost like the whole island had to hear what I had to say. Yeah. So on the Wednesday morning, again, we were live on TV again, on the radio. And then again, it was like everybody was sitting for the 5-6 days I was there, what I had to say. So on the second day, we went to a college in St. Anne's. And this was an opportunity for people that didn't attend the lecture, but also for people that wanted to hear what I had to say. And there was loads of people that travelled. So that was a room of over 200 people in the room, and you had students.
Is that the one that was on the news?
No, that was the Tuesday.
First one. Okay.
That was the Tuesday. So that one was caught on the news.
Okay.
So at the college, you know, you had, you know, students that are doing law, students that are doing psychology, criminology, and then you had loads of people from the different parishes to St. Anne, St. Mary's. People had travelled to be there. And again, that was an interesting experience because for me, it was kind of like humbling to see they put so much on for me. They had, you know, people that come to perform, you know, they had food. And I just thought to myself, they're doing all of this just to hear what I've had to say. And again, it was an overwhelming experience, and it was just like I sat back at one point and I just looked around and thought, all of these people have travelled from all parts of the island just to hear what I've got to say for an hour. So I made sure I capitalised on what it was. So then on the Thursday now was supposed to be my day off. So I was told, you know, get some sun, you know, go chill in the pool. Originally we were supposed to go to different parts of the island for me to chill. But because of my national profile on the TV, from a security perspective, they said, you know what, it's best you just chill in your hotel, which I was cool with anyway. I didn't go there with the intention to be chilling anyway, because with work I've done in the past, I'm never there to chill, I'm there to work. So it was a good thing that I went down to chill about 8-9 o'clock. So then by 12 o'clock now, getting loads of phone calls. Apparently some gang members had made contact with the Ministry of Justice and some community workers from Augustown. And they basically wanted to sit down. So I'm
sit down with you
and have a conversation. So naturally I'm thinking, okay, that's a bit nervy. Gang members want to come and chat to me. But I kind of went back into my old school, no different to working with individuals that are violent
what you do here.
And it's what I do. So the first thing I asked was, do I need a bulletproof vest?
You're being serious?
Yeah, that was the first question. I said, no. The people that are going to be leading the session said that all of it's good.
So wait, if they was to say, yeah, would you just wear a vest and go anyway?
Yeah, still. Why not?
That's mad.
I mean, for me, remember, I'm claiming to be an individual that specializes in gangs and serious youth violence. So if I'm working with individuals that are extreme and I write about extreme groups within society, why would I not want to be a part of them? And this is why I always say that you have people that are out there in the society that always claim to do this work or claim to do something of similar nature. So you have people that are bookworms, that are excellent at writing papers, and you got really good community workers. There's not many people that are able to bridge that gap, and that's why my slogan is I'm about bridging the gap between academia and the streets. So I can do a bit of both. So I write papers, I write articles, I write reports, but I'm also on the ground. And that is a live demonstration that I'm prepared to do that. So I went to down August Town. You know, I was in a bus full of individuals. You know, my individual that was taking me around, Mr. Phillips, was there. Love Mr. Phillips. You know, I just know I was protected 100% when I was around that man. Every time I would do a session, I'd be talking. I'd always see him in the corner in the background. So I knew that anything goes off, he's going to be the man to make sure that I was good. So when we got to August Town, we were walking into the community. There was like a police station that I was invited to talk to some people in the police station. I didn't know the Ministry of Justice was going to be there, so he showed up. So you can imagine the whole community now coming outside to see what's going on. August Town is where Sizzler's from, if you don't know. So it wasn't too far from where one of his houses are. So one of the things that the community, and these are the people that are on the front line today working with the gangs in those particular areas. There's been a lot of issues in August Town at the minute. There was calm in 2016. There was no murders. And then last year, there was a couple of incidents, and coming into 2018, there was a number of incidents. So that's the reason why they wanted me to come down there and kind of look at, well, how do I perceive violence? How do I perceive gangs? And what are some of the ways that Europeans or Americans respond to gangs and violence? So one of the things that I noticed speaking to them is that, and this is for those that are watching this, is that the competency of a lot of the frontline workers was very low. And what I mean by competency is their ability to be able to use a range of different methods to be able to engage with people. So as I mentioned, restorative justice is a platform and a strategy that the Jamaican people have been using to respond to issues around violence. So when I was talking to a young man that was talking about aspects of violence, he was looking at it through a restorative justice perspective, and he's saying he's struggling to work with the gangs because nobody wants to let up, or nobody wants to talk about the fact that they're owning up to the situation. So my response was, have you not thought about mediation? And it was kind of like, what do you mean? And I was saying that restorative justice works, but you have to also use other models in order to make the restorative justice work. So if you've got a problem, I can't come to you with restorative justice without just saying, you know what? How are you? Talk to me.
I get you.
So I'm using a different strategy to talk to you before I try and shove restorative justice down your throat. So for me, I realised that there's a lack of training and a lack of education about multi-models to engage with people. So here in the Western Hemisphere, or you're talking about Europe or you're talking about America, we will use counselling, we'll use a bit of one-to-one mentoring, we'll use a bit of motivational speaking, and we'll use a bit of humanistic type approaches. So you don't really have a structure and use restorative justice possibly as a strategy to engage with an individual. So for me, that was one of the things that was highlighted from me in terms of the workers. So when I spoke to them about, you know, probably looking at other types of models, you could see them all writing down like, you know what, I didn't think of it like that.
Did you think, so is it similar to the lecture that you're teaching at the moment at UCB? Is it similar to you implementing the teachings
very much, over there? Yeah, very much so. But slightly different in the context of the country. So I'll explain that in a moment. So whilst I was doing my talk and the minister then was speaking, something was said to the Minister of Justice, and it was literally like he just slid out so I didn't think anything of it. I'm still talking. Then I seen a woman at the back kind of saying to me, you know, stop the conversation, and I'm me being me, still chatting away. And then a note was sent to me that there was a murder that just happened outside of the building. Wow. So you can imagine everybody's now starting to panic. Everyone was like, Craig, come on, we need to leave. So
wait, where was your
Mr. Phillips is right outside.
Oh, okay.
I always just look to see where Mr. Phillips is, and if he looks calm, I'm calm. It was literally like that. If he looks calm, I'm calm. And it was just a situation where, you know, we got into the bus, the people that collected me, and we was driving towards I was driving out of August Town and you could see the police blocked off. So it wasn't right outside the building, but it was
near
on the same road. Yeah. Put it that way.
Did that make you feel like you wanted to go home?
Nah, not at all. I think for me, I was more upset because I wanted to see these young people. Yeah. And then I was thinking, is it the same young people that wanted to talk to me, or were they victims or the perpetrators? So what I learnt was 4 guys got shot and 1 lost their life. And one of the community workers that I was talking to, or we were talking to, it was his nephew that got killed.
Oh my God.
So that was that explained why he got up and was on his phone.
Oh, I see.
All of that behaviour, when I reflect on it now, that was all what was going on at that particular moment.
With the killings that's happening out there, because when I hear 156 from 1st to 3rd of Jan, I just think of gangs and it's just guys or maybe young boys shooting each other. So is that what it is?
Predominantly is. Okay. Gang violence, young people fighting over turf, fighting over power, fighting over situations, what we call from a criminological perspective, interpersonal violence. So they have a beef with each other, whether that is based on a deal that they've done together and someone's fell out and got a little bit greedy. So whether that's around a scamming situation, or people are selling drugs and people are not bringing back money, or those types of little incidents. But there's also other incidents that are taking place. We're talking about there's women that have been murdered as well that are linked to some of those types of crimes. There's also issues around women being raped, or individuals trying to rape women and in the process ended up killing them. So a lot of executions where I heard of, even whilst I was there was like families that have individuals where husband, wife and the daughter, 2-year-old, 4-year-old child, or throats cut inside the house. And then you start to think, wow, so it's not just the level of violence in the country, but for me it's more about the type of violence that takes place, and it's not just shootings. We're talking about people being butchered and left in bushes or just left in their households. So for me, going to the finale, which was the Friday, I'm glad I did all of those sessions, and I'm glad I got to meet all of the people. And I was recording, interviewing people as well. So I'm going to edit up that at the moment, and then I'll present it to everybody so they can essentially see it. But by the Friday, I think that it gave me enough to bring my A game to the final conference. And at that conference, again, over 200 people that was there. But
and where was that conference?
This was in Kingston. So this now, conference now, we had all of the people that needed to hear. So we had like the Minister of Education there, the Minister of Health, National Security were in the building, loads of different types of workers and people in high places. But the Prime Minister, unfortunately, were there. So my first part of my presentation was about getting the Jamaican people to realise and recognise that violence is not unique to Jamaicans. My first 2 days, it was like, I hear what you're saying, Craig, but this is Jamaica. So what I did for the first few presentations was break down to them some of the murder capitals of the world and got them to look at the violence, also the type of violence. So we're looking at places that have issues around politics and gangsters and issues around extreme poverty. And I'm glad that I did that, because it was like almost like a light bulb moment for a lot of them, like, whoa, so it's not just us as a nation going through these problems. Secondly, getting them to look at the type of and the number of homicide rates in places like America. So we're talking about like your Chicago, your Baltimores, your New Yorks, and then got them to look at from a Europe perspective of the issues around extremism that we're having in this part of the world. Even got them to look at the UK, and we're talking about knife crime capitals, London, and we're talking about Birmingham being a gun crime capital. So the homicide rates in certain places might not be the same, but the levels of violence and the mentality are the same. And then secondly, getting them to understand that the violence, again, is only a symptom of a deeper problem. So getting them to look at things like history and the impact that colonialism has had on the Jamaican people and people from the smaller islands. Getting them to look at trauma. They don't talk about trauma. Trauma was detached from the discussion. And we're talking about intergenerational trauma. Whereas, people say these things like, if you was just to, give the people money, or you was to remove them out of poverty, that would deal with their problems. Yes, it would deal with one part of their problems. But if you're dealing with a traumatized people that has been passed down from generation to generation, no matter how much money you're going to give me, if you don't fix what's going on up here, you're still going to see aspects of violence. So he's getting them to understand that there's so many reasons why people become violent and why we have the desensitization to the violence, meaning individuals are seeing people get killed, shot within the street, and you don't hear no responses. And when you look at some of the videos that are floating around online, there's one video, myself and my wife was watching at home, and we was looking at a video, and there was these kids that's on the corner, and it was just like, my man just dead. Now, from a criminological perspective, I look at that like these people are damaged people. Yeah. So when they grow older, and these are individuals that...
Oh, before you go on to the next one, I wanted to ask you, did they want you to give them quick fix problems and something to sort out so next week it dies down?
No, I can honestly say that it was receptive in terms of the point where they understood that I was not there to bring no magic pill. Okay. I knew I wasn't there for no magic pill, and anybody that's watching this that thought that, why are you going to Jamaica and we haven't fixed the UK? No, that's not what it was about. For me, it was about, can I bring forth something that will be practical and realistic? So one of the things that I brought forth to them was getting them to look at responding to violence through a public health measure.
Yes, what is a public health response?
So public health response is very different to the current responses that we have predominantly around the world. So, for example, we have violence in this part of the world. How do we respond? Enforcement. We lock people up, put them on tag, put them through the criminal justice pipeline, and then that just becomes the cycle for many males within our society. They go jail, go through prison, come out of prison, rehabilitation hasn't really worked out, they go right back to criminality and whatnot. Public health response operates very much like violence is a disease. So we respond and we treat it like it's a disease. So we deal with it in the moment, but it's a continuation of methods, strategies in order to engage with the problem. So for example, in layman's terms, shooting goes off. How do we normally respond as a society here? People normally go to the hospital. We kind of reason with the individual and, see if they're all right. And then 2 or 3 days later, we start probably doing a community investigation of who was involved. So from a public health model, that doesn't work. So if you respond to it like it's a disease, imagine you've got an infection. If you've got an infection, I need to contain that infection in the here and now before you infect someone else. So how would you infect someone else in terms of a shooting? Through your mobile phone. Because you're going to phone someone and say, you know what, this happened to me and it was Craig that did it and such and such. So even though everyone's at the hospital saying, Shanika, how you doing? How's things? Are you fine? You've already sent me the text message. So I already said now something's going on whilst you're at the hospital. So a public health model in relation to gun violence would be that you contain the particular individual. The community know who's doing the shootings. So that means there's another team that's engaging with the individuals that are most likely the perpetrators. Then there's another team that works with the community as a whole. So a public health model is about changing behavioural norms. And the behavioural norm is that when there's a shooting, we expect there to be another shooting. That's not supposed to be normal in a normal society. So it's about changing those behavioural norms. So that is not a quick fix. That is not a process that's going to happen overnight. So yes, there is going to be more murders. Yes, there is going to be more homicides. But I honestly believe that the Jamaican people were very open and real. There's a lot of people that work in some of those positions that are prepared, to listen and to move forward. Problem is, from a political perspective, is, as you know, in Jamaica, when one party comes in, whatever the last party did kind of gets thrown out. So those are the challenges. And it was open and it was realistic in terms of what the challenges are. But in terms of a model of responding to the violence, for them it was like, we never looked at it like that. And so when I spoke to them about how Chicago in the past have used types of models, we've looked at Baltimore, we've looked at New York, we've looked at places like even Glasgow have adopted a public health model to responding to violence. What does that look like in real time? So that was my job, to get them to look at it in real time. And I genuinely believe that, my mission was complete, as I say, and, it's up to the Jamaican people now to take that forward. And my role now would be with the Jamaican people. I'd prefer to be a part of a consultancy type of role where I support them in terms of that process. So one of my calls that I made as leaving, and I said this will be my legacy as the child of the diaspora of the Jamaican people, is that I said that there needs to be a violence desistance type of forum.
What's desistance?
Desistance is the process that causes people to commit crime. And this essentially forum that I'm talking about would invite academics and frontline professionals from the Caribbean, but also the diaspora. There's a lot of people in different parts of the world that are children of those places that might not be born there. And similar, because I'm part of what is called the EU Gangs Network or the Euro Gang Network. And basically we meet once a year for about 4 days and we have meetings where we present research. We talk about practical ideas of how we're trying to shape policy or are shaping policy around responding to gangs and serious youth violence. And I'll be real, like, I love it. You know, it gives me loads of opportunities. I get to travel around Europe and different parts of America, but it's not home. So I'm saying that, you know, there needs to be a similar version from a Caribbean perspective. So we're bringing people from Trinidad and Tobago. We're bringing people from the Bahamas, you know, but then also academics that might be in Europe, might be in Germany, might be in England, might be in France, that are from the diaspora, that have something to bring to the table to demonstrate and help each other. So I thought I
would be
learned.
as brave as you are there to go on the front line out in Jamaica, because people hear horror stories about Jamaica if they haven't been before. There's
loads of people in the community that do what I do, and I don't think that they would object to, you know, doing that type of role. And I think, you know, one of the things that I will say, and I always say to, you know, even the students that I train and people that I train in terms of the gang programs that I run, is that live by your social media. We're in a technological era. Tweet everything, because that's how they find you, and that's how they're able to establish that you are unique, and two, that you have a knowledge base that can be supportive. So you don't have to necessarily be a frontline professional to be able to be part of the Violence Desistance Forum. But you have something to bring to the table. You're not just a person that just sits back and points the finger. You're not a person that critiques. Rather, you're a person that does something. And it's about the doers as opposed to the talkers.
With the people out in Jamaica, like the frontline workers doing similar work to you do, did you find that they were the bookworm kind, or were they the frontliners, or was it people that have previously been in gangs?
Frontliners.
Okay.
And again, when I said I went to August Town and I had meetings, or when I spoke to the people from Tivoli Garden that was working on the front line, again, it's that multi-model approach that lacked. So a part of, for example, the forum that I'm talking about, so I gave them a model that would be realistic. So I said the first part of the model would be, they have what is called stakeholders.
Okay.
And these stakeholders are all the frontline people that are known in every community, that are supported by what are called research teams. Because you can't deal with a problem in any public health model unless you know what the infection is and what the infection is all about. You have to define the problem before you put any intervention and implementation. Problem is that we all stay on defining the problem, but we don't want to do anything.
Okay.
You know, and I think that's what irritates me with people online, when all they do is talk about the problem, but they don't do anything, or they don't seek to be a part of a group that wants to do something. So in that particular model, you got your stakeholders, you've got your researchers that support the process. And then you've got the frontline workers that are guided by the stakeholders and the research. So if you're saying that, you know, the rape is an epidemic in the country, paedophilia is an epidemic in the country that's causing violence in these particular areas, then the frontline workers would respond according based on what the research and what the stakeholders are saying. Okay. So those stakeholders also would be individuals that would provide finance. So the Ministry of Justice, for example, would be a stakeholder. And then part of that stakeholder team is about acknowledging, well, where does finance go realistically in those particular places? Because ultimately it's about finance, and that finance ultimately is going to be able to sustain whether a public health approach is going to work. Now,
so do you reckon it's possible if they don't get the finances for it then?
Well, I think one of the things that I was also arguing is about the lack of corporate investment. And we're talking about accountability on a corporate level. You know, how are we putting pressures on individuals that come into the country and essentially sucking the blood out of the people, but not investing back into some of those communities? But that's a government discussion. Again, I didn't really want to get too political with the people, but the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Justice at the end, you know, I could see her nodding. And she said in her announcement, she said, you know what, her job is to try and find the money. She'll need a few days to reflect. Everything that Craig has said has been taken on board, and there will be changes in Jamaica. So for me, from my perspective, I've done what I've needed to do. Whether it takes place or not is on them. And if they do, then and if they then say that, you know what, we want you back. So I hope Jamaica are watching again. If you want Craig back, I want to come back. But if you want me back to support in terms of that process, that's what my role is. But I'm saying
Yeah.
that it's not just me. There's loads of thinkers. When I talk about my mentors and people that are working on the front line, you know, if I was to put one of my third year students in Jamaica, they would shine from a community level.
Yeah.
Because they come with all of those different types of models and they would be able to benefit from those people. So that's my point that I'm making in terms of that collective global network of individuals coming together for one purpose, which is to reduce the violence and murder within our country.
Hopefully something does change.
Hopefully.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the response that you received from everyone out there, because I know you mentioned that everyone told you, yeah, but it's Jamaica, so it's different. Overall, how was the response?
It was a beautiful response. So by the Friday, all of the parishes, or the ones that couldn't make it, came as their community. And it was weird because it was like people were like fighting to take pictures of me.
Really?
It was weird. So it was like, we are the Tivoli Garden community.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're not from Tivoli Garden, can you like stand to the side, please? And it's like, we want Craig to take a picture. And then it was like, then the Denham Town community, the Spanish Town community.
Yeah.
And then it was like this community, or the St. Anne's community had travelled. Wow. And they're like, you know, we want to take a picture with Craig. And it was overwhelming, weird at the same time. Because as I've said, you know, I've been doing this work for about 14 years now. And I've travelled to so many places around the world. And I've never got that type of response. And I think what made the whole process, not just for me but for them, so beautiful was the fact that I've got Jamaican heritage.
Yeah.
That's what gave me the edge, because I kept asking them, why me? You know, what is it do you like about me? And all of them said that the moment they knew that your people are from St. Elizabeth, the moment they found out that your people are from Manchester, Mandeville, parts of Kingston, it was like, he's our child, he's one of us.
So I can imagine it touches home with you as well, because that's your family out there. So you're not just looking at it from a complete outsider's perspective. It's something that's affecting your people as well. And
I think that was, I think ultimately that was it. You know, they all said, you know, prior to, you know, me leaving, was that out of, you know, all the people that have come to the country, you know, to do work or to support the government or to support the Jamaican people, a lot of them are outsiders, or as they would say, foreigners. But when I came, I understood the Jamaican people. I understood their language, I understood their culture, I understand their customs. Yeah. And I understood them. Yeah. So nothing had to be explained to me.
It's like going back home.
So whether, you know, the man from country was talking fast, or someone was talking posh, I got it all. I never once had to ask someone to say what you just said again, because I don't understand what you're talking about. And, you know, it was just, you know, even on the last day, you know, the permanent secretary, she read all of my family members' names in the Caribbean, that if anybody's watching on TV, you know, these are, you know, so Uncle Cooley and Uncle Garfield, Cousin Christine, you know, Cousin Darren, Cousin Karen, you know, Cousin Dwight. If any of you guys are watching this, this is your nephew or your cousin that is about to now talk to the Jamaican people. And I think for me that was touching to see that, and I've never had that type of response, no matter where I've gone. And I think the love was real. You know, their respect, their hospitality, you know, was 100%. And as I said, I felt 100% safe. There was not one moment where I ever felt, oh, I shouldn't be here or whatnot.
Because sometimes I know people from outside perspective can think of it as like a tick box. So they call someone from England to come and help to say, oh yeah, they've actually done something, but it's actually real. It
wasn't a tick box exercise. The type of people that I had access to, it's real life for them. Yeah. So it couldn't have been a tip. It would have been a tip exercise if it was from the perspective of, I was just in the government building, I was there for the whole 5 days, I only spoke to people from the government. I can get where people are coming from, but I was in the community. I was with the people from the community. You know, I was amongst people that are the shape shifters inside the community that cause peace. You know, even when I went August Town, there was a man that I was greeted to, and they say he was instrumental in terms of stopping a lot of the violence and the reason why there wasn't much shootings in 2016. So to sit amongst him was a privilege, but also for the fact that he was able to learn from me.
Did you get to speak to many police officers out there?
No, I didn't. Sorry, yes, there was ex-police officers that I spoke to. Okay. To be fair, there was a lot of people on the Friday that I can't remember who they said they represented. The only thing I do remember is the Jamaican Defence. Okay. I remember National Security being in the building.
Okay.
I just do remember those like the most popular people, because I was told that table is Ministry of Defence, and that people are the defence people, and these are the army people, and these people are X whatever. So I was kind of told about those people, but there was so many people I didn't have a chance. I was with people taking pictures at least an hour and 20 minutes.
Wow.
Literally. I was starving, like I couldn't even eat the food that they gave me, but I got it and I embraced it. You know, it was something that for them, it was like, you know what, I got it. And all the emails that I've been getting since I've returned has been that, you know, thanks for your passion. You know, they realised it wasn't, you know, just kind of like a tick box exercise. They knew it wasn't really like a, you know, kind of like ceremonial. They knew it wasn't all of that. It was real, and they sensed that, and they got first hand of that. And I would assume Jamaicans are the only people, well, in my opinion, we know a fake and a fraud when we see one, and I didn't present myself like that.
Just who you are. And I think when I seen the video of you, I think you was doing a lecture, it was the one that was on the news, I think maybe on the first day of the Tuesday, you can hear the passion in your voice, and how the news reporter was explaining what you're doing is monumental, and I think they're going to take it seriously.
And I sense that. I genuinely sense that they've got a good, for the Ministry of Justice, they've got a very good staff team that are there that have a vested interest in the people. You know, you got people from America that work there. So there's loads of different types of people that are in the ministry, and they seem real. So moving forward, one of the things that I want to do, because I'm still in reflection mode. You're the only person that has interviewed me or spoke to me really about my experience since I've returned. So what I plan to do is a sit down opportunity, you know, just to kind of get a real reflection and kind of go through my presentations of what I did and show the footage of the interviews that I had with the people. So give me about 2 weeks or whatever, people.
We'll give you some rest time, unless you called out there again.
And then I will announce an event. It will be free of charge, probably at the university, as it's a big space when people can come down and they can ask all of these questions. And be real, I don't know all of the answers, but I know what my mission was, and I know that my mission was complete. And I think for me, it's just more now about how do we build upon that learning and practice and moving forward in terms of, you know, in terms of my work. You know, I start my PhD shortly, you know, and for me, that's probably one of the biggest things in terms of my achievement. I think now for me is the best time for me to do my PhD. Because my focus is there now, you know, coming outside of Europe and going to somewhere like Jamaica has really enabled me to understand how violence is perceived by other people, what violence is, and the models and strategies to reduce violence.
I wanted to ask you about the kids out there, because I know we've been speaking about the gangs as a whole. Is it mainly kids? Well,
young people. I use the category of young people. So we're talking, you know, young people as early as, you know, 15 to 21, 22 is the general age. But there are young people that are younger that are involved in issues of violence. And
another question as well, when it comes to, I know you mentioned the knives and cutting throats and stuff, the guns. How are so many guns floating around Jamaica?
Good
Did
question.
You get to find out?
And that was one of the things that I said to the Jamaican people. More so as a critique to the government. You know, Jamaican people don't make automatic machine guns.
Consider it's a third
but you have to
world
also
country.
Understand where it's located as well. You know, Jamaica's not far from America. It's not far from places like Cuba, Colombia, which are also major capitals of the world. So the access between America and Europe and automatic machinery in terms of weapons end up in those smaller islands and then easily to come back into Jamaica. So there's a big issue in terms of the ports, in terms of import and export of not just Class A drugs, but also we're talking about, you know, weapons. We're talking about individuals with AK-47s and M16s and, you know, certain types of artillery, AR-15s. They shoot that into a crowd of people. You can understand why 4, 5, 7 people are getting shot at one time, you know, and it's young people that don't know how to use these weapons, but are using weapons that the army are supposed to be using on each other. So that's also a big issue as well, and I did talk about that in my presentation of where are the guns essentially coming from. Because how the poor people that can't afford to live but can afford to have a automatic firearm in order to, you know, deal with their disputes. So there's a lot of stuff that, you know, the Jamaican people have to, you know, acknowledge, and I think that they do acknowledge it. some turn a blind eye, but I do believe that there's a vested interest from a lot of individuals from some of the ministries that are engaged and want to engage with the problem. And I sense that from working with the people, that they feel that the Ministry of Justice, in particular out of the ministries, have a genuine vested interest in the community.
And you mentioned, I think recently as well, the fact that your mission isn't to necessarily separate the gangs, it's to stop the violence. How can that happen? How does that work? How can you separate gang, not separate a gang?
My philosophy has always been the same. If you study human groups, or any human groups, whether it's family, whether it's social groups, whether it's, you're part of a gym, we are all social beings and social people. So if you're from a community, and a tight-knit community, where everybody knows everybody, and then someone tells you that you're not supposed to be part of that community, how realistic is that? So my role is not really trying to separate people from each other, rather it's about reducing the issues that take place in community. So for example, if there's violence that takes place in the community, my focus will be more so about reducing the violence as opposed to telling someone that they can't be with their friend. I always say, my slogan is, gangs are like surrogate families. So if gangs replace everything in society that society don't give an individual. So if you don't have a father figure, you don't have a job, if you can't sustain yourself, you're looking for a sense of belonging. Unfortunately, gangs replace that because you'll have an older that would represent your older brother or your dad. You'll have an opportunity to make some sort of money. You'll have security. You'll get respect by these defaults, and you'll be a part of something, and you'll be acknowledged to being a part of that. So my thing is, trying to eradicate something without replacing something doesn't make any sense. So if your effort is to stop individuals from being in gangs, then why not put the same energy in just reducing the violence? But that's where the problem is, and that's where it's not a short fix. Because the short fix is dismantling gangs, but the long-term thing is reducing the violence, because then you have to engage with trauma, then you have to engage with mental health, then you have to engage with poverty, then you have to engage with lack of opportunity, then you have to engage with the lack of unemployment, then you have to talk about the poverty line. So there's so many things you have to engage with reducing the violence. So the quick fix is always enforcement. So when you're talking about a public health approach, the public health approach doesn't deal with telling people to not be a part of the gang, but it's about reducing the violence. And that's ultimately what a public health approach is all about. So if you're looking for a quick fix, enforcement, dismantling gangs, locking people up and sending people to different parts of wherever on the island, or even they do that in the UK, they give people gang injunctions, moved into different parts of the city, they can't come back to Birmingham. But does that deal with the problem? No, it doesn't. Because if you made individuals and young men have jobs, if you made young men deal with their issues of trauma, the fact that they've watched their friends or cousins get stabbed and shot, if you dealt with the fact that, there's no investment in the community that they come from, maybe they wouldn't be violent in the first place. But that's long term. Short fix is just removing them from the situation.
And I suppose just like what you were saying with the community, and they were telling you that those dons that have been taken away, so basically those gangs have been eradicated and split up, it hasn't made the country any better because the violence is
still was given back to the people.
Erupting.
There was community organisations, people were going to school, people had money to feed their children. So you can understand why there was an element of calm in certain communities because of those particular reasons.
What do you think of the police side in Jamaica? Now, what I've heard on the streets and stuff through the grapevine is that the police can be quite crooked out there. I can understand in most countries that happens as well, but particularly in Jamaica. So hence why a lot of the violence gets to happen is because the police are okay with it, because they're getting tip-offs. Did you get that feel
I got that feel from the people in terms of police corruption and brutality from the police. And I see that with most countries, there's corruption, as you've just said. It was a very clear distinction between the police and defence in terms of the army, that there's kind of like a no tolerance, and the people kind of respect the army because they have no ties with the police as such. So when the army come, people know that it's time to be a bit serious. But when the police come, because they know that some of them have been involved in or dealings with criminal entities, it's very hard to take things serious. So if individuals go to the police because of genuine help, an individual that might be involved in a gang or involved with a criminal organisation might be told by that same police officer, and those individuals kind of end up dead before a situation takes place. So lack of trust is definitely within communities within Jamaica. And again, for me, these are all government issues. And I didn't have enough time to talk about everything. And also, I got to be real as well. I wanted to come home safe.
Yeah,
so I didn't want to be too political with them.
Well, exactly.
But definitely a major issue that needs to also be engaged. But from what I heard from the people is that they felt that, you know, the army could be trusted more than the actual police on the street or in the community.
And are the defence taking a positive role or a big role in the emergency state?
They're only going to do what they know. And it's going to be enforcement. So it's containment, it's curfews, it's martial law, it's making sure people are not moving around and able to move around as frequent as they are, because at the moment they need to reduce the violence. So
do you reckon they would take that public health response?
I had a conversation with a minister of one of the ministers of defence, and he was saying that he struggles to see how the public health, and that was an honest response. He said he struggled to see how such a model would work here. And I said to him, you know, maybe it's another sit-down conversation that we have to look at other places that were able to use that model. So again, I'm waiting for a call. So I don't mind attending a meeting again in Kingston, Jamaica, if you want to have that conversation. Hint, hint. But as I said, it was, again, I didn't go there with any thinking or concept that everyone's going to be like, yeah, I get it. We're going to be able to do it tomorrow. That wasn't the purpose. Yeah. And I think as a criminologist, sometimes it's not about providing solutions. Sometimes it's about asking questions. And I think I asked a lot of questions that made people think.
That's good. I think that's what they need out there. I wanted to, just before we leave, about the tourist side. Now, as far as I was concerned at the beginning, I know that crime happens in Jamaica quite often anyway, but because it's gone to places like Montego Bay is why it's being exaggerated, not necessarily exaggerated, but initially in the UK, just to warn people away from going. So do you think that had to do with anything when it comes to it being the tourist side?
I personally don't think so. If I look at it from a criminological statistical perspective, they can't ignore it. Because their murder rate in 2017, by January the 30th, their murder rate had doubled, you know, in most places compared to last year's statistics. So I understand why the concept of the state of emergency was called. However, it's not a state of emergency across the island. So there are some very beautiful places that unfortunately I didn't get to visit, or even certain parts of Kingston that I visited that was really nice. And there wasn't essentially issues that were taking place. So from a tourist perspective, they need to seem that they're doing something. So it makes sense that they announced it, because it's really bad. You know, that's like, you know, if you think of January the 1st to February the 15th today. You know, and we're talking about, you know, almost 190. That's almost like 30 bodies a week. So that gives you an idea, an indication of the level of violence that not just constituted in St. James and Montego Bay, but also there's other pockets of violence taking place, you know, in Clarendon and, you know, other St. Catherine and other places that there's violence essentially taking place. But again, a lot of it is to do with the same types of issues. And as long as there's going to be poverty, as long as there's extreme trauma, as long as there's lack of opportunity, lack of corporate investment, as long as there's police brutality and corruption within the government, you're always going to see violence. And that's a synopsis that's anywhere around the world. You know, and again, not to kind of compare it in terms of, you know, the UK or America in terms of homicide rates, but you look in our communities right now, you know, what do young people really have? You know, you're talking about the concept of boredom, and you're talking about young people not having the opportunities, and people say things like, you know, there are opportunities for young people, but are those opportunities appropriate for every person, or are we looking at it as everybody in one particular boat, or are we looking at people in a unique format where we look at each individual and what it is that they want? So there needs to be an approach. UK need a public health approach. The Mayor of London's talking about a public health approach in order to reduce violence within London, but that needs to be a city-wide type of approach. But as you know, it's all about that. And it's not a short fix. It's going to require minimum 8 to 12 years, you know, in order to really see some real change.
Is that for the UK?
If you, in any aspect you think, again, we talk about short fix versus long term. To make sure you're okay and to change societal norms, to change behavioural norms, that is going to take a long process. But if you work for an organisation and they tell you you've only got 6 weeks to work with this young boy or young girl, you can honestly understand why. I'm still working with people now that I first started working with in 2008, and they're still not they're still not all right.
Yeah.
So that shows that when you're talking about changing behaviours and changing mindsets, it's a long term process.
Yeah.
So when people say to me, "Oh, how many people, gang members, have you worked with that have changed?" I'm like, they're still changing, and they haven't completely changed because it's a long-term process.
It's not a switch.
And I wish I had the resources to help them holistically, as opposed to just being a bigger brother that's imparting knowledge upon them.
With the advice and inputs that you put in Jamaica, if you had to predict when you think action and change, you could see the change, when do you reckon that would be?
Can't honestly answer that question. I'm waiting at 10 days. I got another Skype meeting in 6 days with people from the ministry.
Okay.
Bearing in mind, the permanent secretary said she's going away to think. So whatever she says to her team, that team's going to
think about what you said.
Think about what I said and how it would work in realistic time. And with all the issues that are taking place on the island, how would that take place? But currently, it's all about containment and enforcement, which is understandable in a state of emergency. But moving forward, it can't be just enforcement the whole way through.
And lastly, before you leave, I read about the book. Is it the Routledge International Handbook of Human Aggression? Yeah, if you can just explain to me that little piece that you wrote in there. Did that have anything to do with...
That was about, I think a lot of people forget that I'm an academic, so I do a lot of research with volatile groups. And part of my PhD and what my specialism is understanding violence as it links to social media. So a lot of reports and a lot of research that I've been doing, and hence why I've been traveling to so many different countries, is getting people to understand the correlation between social media, music and violence. Okay. So that was just another chapter of my research in a book, and obviously it's an honour to be somewhere like Routledge because that's one of the top publishers around the world. But again, for me, that solidifies myself as a criminologist. It solidifies the fact that I'm not just talking, I'm actually doing, and also using my access in community to be able to do that. So I'll be real, I shout out all the gang members that have helped me, because without them giving me that insight, I wouldn't be able to present that type of information. And that's why I'm always a defender of young people before I cast any blame, because in order for me to get access, I'm going to need those same type of individuals to give me an insight into what their social reality is like. What is life like for you? I've lived in some of those environments, but I didn't do the things that they did. So why is it that you've done something different? So I'm not saying that social media is the reason and the sole reason for why we have the violence, but it's an indicator, and it's oftentimes a trigger. So a music video goes up, someone says something on Twitter, someone takes some disrespect to it. Normally there's a response to the violence. So part of my PhD is about understanding and making sense of what that actually looks like. But is it social media, or is it related to culture issues? Is it related to society issues? And I'm saying, of course they are. Because if you can find power, status, respect through social media platforms, then you're going to do so. And that's why you have the illusion on Facebook where people act like they've got all of this money, or people act like they're living a certain lifestyle, or people are acting like, things are going on that they're not. They're happy in their relationship and they're at home getting beat up or whatnot. And not to make those things trivial, but it's the illusion that people essentially make up. So if people are dealing with the illusions, am I saying that it's the illusion? No, what I'm saying is it's a deeper rooted problem. And even in terms of when I was in Jamaica, I was getting them to understand how social media as well contributes to some of the violence. Because the moment someone makes a video and talks about them man or them man in a discussion, someone takes offense. And then that then goes into the physical world in terms of the violence. So for me, it's about, demonstrating my academic ability through all of these different types of opportunities. And again, solidifying myself as a criminologist. And I said my mission has always been a leading criminologist, or one of the leading criminologists in the UK and in Europe, and not just a thinker but also a doer in terms of responding to gangs and serious youth violence. So this is part of the legacy and the mission. That's
brilliant. I really enjoy the part when you said about the perspectives. It's understanding someone on their level, because sometimes it's so easy to look out from the outside in, and you have an opinion on you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do this, but it's actually understanding why they're thinking that way, why they're doing this, because there's reason behind it. You know, it's not just random.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Craig. Thank you so much. And if you do end up going to Jamaica again, I can imagine we all wish you safe travels.
Yeah, indeed.
And to get back safe.
Brilliant. Thank you.
As well. Anything else for the year before you leave, actually? Aside from your PhD?
PhD is my main focus right now. I'm sure my supervisor's watching this like, PhD, Craig, you need to step back from what you do. I'm going to take a big step back from a lot of the community stuff that I'm doing.
Okay.
Because I need to get the stamp of Dr. Craig. I need to get that.
Yeah.
If I do any international visits, you know, I'm in Amsterdam in a few months.
Okay.
That'll be again presenting some more research. But it will be them types of visits. It's not going to require that I'm actively doing something. So, you know, I support Community Vision as an organisation, John Campbell, TSA Associates, Tanaya Sam, another organisation in the community where I'll come in, support an event or support a process, but I'm not involved in their day-to-day activities because I don't have the time. Yeah. And I need to be PhD focused. And that's what's been said to me behind closed doors. I need to take a step back, and I'm prepared to take that step back. So you'll see me pop up for a few things, but it's mainly going to be my academic, because I want to get my academic ability on the same level as my practice. Okay. And I encourage everybody that, you know, don't have, you know, just, you know, create your niche, you know, be different, be unique, you know, be a person that can do both as opposed to just one. So I can go into an academic space and give you the whole chronological breakdowns of why things are happening. But I can also go onto the street, talk to the man them on the block and say, oh, I'll go on and whatnot. And, you know, there's not a lot of people that do that, but there's skills that over the years, through brilliant mentorship, through advice and guidance by the elders and individuals in the community that are affected by these issues, that have made me me and made me to be effective to do that. Yeah. So going to, you know, another country like Jamaica or America and whatnot, for me, is just a demonstration that, you know, little Craig from Little Hockley, you know, can boss international. And if I can do it, so can you. That's good. That's some nice motivation for anyone else out there. Indeed. Really good motivation. Thank you so much again, Craig. All right, hopefully we catch up again with you soon. Just if anyone is interested in renting or even using this podcast studio, then you can give a call to this number 07854 061 460. That's 07854 061 460 to use the podcast area, and that's Beep Studios. I'm Shaniqua Paris, and I'll be back on Monday. Everyone have a lovely evening and good night.